Hey everybody, welcome back. Welcome back. It's not often that I do this, but I have these one-on-one interviews with these authors who've had real success with their books and how it's helped them grow their business. Without any further delay, let me officially introduce this week's guest. Today's guest has spent over 4 decades mastering the art and science of differentiation. As the founder and CEO of LaBov Marketing Communications and Training, he's developed a proprietary brand reengineering process that helps leaders discover and maximize what makes their brands truly special. His approach is simple, yet powerful: win hearts, minds, and market share. His clients range from Harley-Davidson and Audi of America to the Macallan Scotch Whisky, Can-Am, and some of the most respected manufacturing companies in the world. His track record speaks volumes. A 2-time Ernst Young Entrepreneur of the Year recipient and Hall of Fame inductee. He's the host of the Difference Talks podcast and has written or co-authored over a dozen business books, including The Power of Differentiation. He's also penned over 100 business articles on brand reengineering, customer loyalty, employee engagement, and much more. His expertise has been featured on CNBC, Fox Business, and numerous podcasts, including ours today. Please join me in welcoming Barry LaBov. Barry, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Robbie. I love your show. It is an honor.
So let's just dig in. You're here to talk about The Power of Differentiation, your latest book. Give us a sense of who this book was written for. Who's the ideal person to be reading it and get incredible value from it?
The easiest answer, Robbie, I can give is a leader, whether that leader has a particular title or not, but somebody who is a leader, somebody that wants to inspire, somebody that wants to get their team together and do more. Now, quite often it is the leader of a company, a large company, or one of the executives of a large company, and they're looking to not only determine what makes what they do unique so that they can promote it and increase sales, but just as important, to be able to inspire the most important audience first, and that is their employees and everybody involved with that product.
You know, this is not your first rodeo by any means. As I mentioned in the intro, you've been part of writing books for a long time, but, deciding to write yet another book, what sparked that moment? And did you have to keep yourself motivated, or is there now something in you? Are you like just writing every day? Like how do you go from sparked idea to finished product? What was that sort of mental space like?
Well, my background originally was music. So I was a songwriter, a rock and roll songwriter, and I wrote hundreds of songs. Now, I didn't say they were great songs, but I wrote a lot, and it taught me how to be very, very prolific in my writing and my creativity. I don't have a problem being creative and writing something down and turning it into something. So I'm fortunate in that way. What inspired me with this book was, as you said, I have many decades under my belt. So it's like, okay, how do I best share what has been learned and the great stories of those people who I've been very fortunate enough to meet with as many people as possible? So my goal, and I was talking to one book publisher at that moment when I was writing it, and he asked me the best question. He said, well, what's your goal with this book? And it cannot be selling copies. And I thought, oh my gosh. Well, my goal is I want to inspire over 1 million people with the message. And you're right. The message is win hearts, minds, and market share. And this book tells you how to do it. And that's the order you do it in, by the way.
By the way, that little win hearts, minds, and market share, it's so catchy. I love when things are clear and catchy, right? Like I feel like I repeat that. It's just a good phrasing, and like you said, it's something you build on. I'm surprised it hasn't been said before. It's like that. It's like, oh, that's a really good way of saying this. As you were developing the book, did your understanding of the ideal reader shift at all? As you started working with a publisher around the purpose for the book and how you now have this focus to have this bigger impact, did it start to go? I mean, in some ways, these kinds of books are like for everyone, and then over time, you're like, all right, how do I write to a singular person who I can imagine using this book? Did that sort of develop or unfold for you?
Well, it did. What unfolded first was the fact that when I started to write this, it was primarily how to identify the uniqueness of your product or service, how to package it, and sell more. But COVID happened, and I was reading an article, and it said that in 1 year in the United States, over 100 million people left their jobs, quit their jobs. So what happened, Robbie, was the message was altered because I thought, oh my gosh, I not only need to help that leader, that CEO of the company, identify the uniqueness in what she or he has so they can sell more, but we have to give their employees a reason to feel that there's a purpose in what they're doing, that there's significance, and that they ought to show up for work tomorrow, let alone do a great job. That's where it changed. So I found that the leader who is hungry for growth, the leader who is humble and wants that employee base to be fired up and excited, that's who this appeals to. The leader that goes, look, I want to 10x my income, this is not an interesting book for that person. It's the person who looks at people as the answer and not the problem.
Gosh, it's such a good distinction because that 10x hustle culture is definitely loud in the world of entrepreneurship. Are you focusing on a certain size company? Is it more of like the entrepreneur business owner, or is it also these larger, I would say, like more corporation with lots of levels between the CEO and the employees? Like, who have you found as you've been using this book now for a little while? It's not brand new. So like who resonates the most, and are you finding you actually have multiple audiences?
Our primary audience is the leader of the enterprise-wide company. So the large company could be 250 million up to billions. That's our primary customer who's out there. That's the person who reads this book and says, okay, I got to get all my people together. Now, what's really great about the book, and I do a lot of podcasts with entrepreneurial hosts, it's great for entrepreneurs. It's just that's not my client's description, let's say. But the entrepreneur, it's perfect for, because that small business, just like mine's a small business, you got to go, wait a minute, what makes us unique? Why would anybody buy from us? I'm on a real campaign, Robbie, to have people fight what we call the commodity monster. It is so easy today to look like, act like, smell like, and price like everybody else. But what happens is you lose everything. And again, I'm going to share this with the audience. This is where it really hit me. You not only lose clients, but you lose the hearts and the minds of your employees because they're going, I don't care anymore. We're not doing anything special. I came here years ago because we did this and that. Now we threw it out. So I see it that way. So even the solopreneur could take the lessons in here and apply it to themselves one-on-one. But my focus is that enterprise leader, 250 million up, who's looking at sometimes a board of directors that are pressuring them. Sometimes it's stock price. Sometimes it's large competitors. And I'm there to say, look, there is a way you can simplify things and motivate the people within your company.
Once the book was a reality and you had already written it, did you have any new aha moments about how you thought about the book and its positioning within the company you've built and how you were going to leverage it? Because sometimes in the creation, you have one idea, but then now the book exists, you've turned that corner and suddenly you see a whole bunch of new opportunities. Now, this isn't your first rodeo again. Like you've done this, so you maybe have foreseen some of this, but what were some of the things you originally thought you were aiming for? And did anything new pop up once the book was a reality?
One thing that popped up as I did podcasts and interviews is the connection of me being a former rock and roll musician and leading a company like it's a band. And I was surprised that resonated but it does resonate and it does make sense, because in the music industry, you have to step back and go, okay, why do I like this artist? What does this artist do? And it's never because you say, well, because they sound like everyone else. It's always because there's something you like. So I was surprised at how that resonated so strongly with people. I actually, for years, downplayed my background in music because I thought, yeah, it doesn't sound very professional and whatever. And it's actually a very important point. The other thing I have learned as I've gone through this experience is I could write another book, a sequel to the book, or a new addition to the book, and I'm forcing myself not to. I am making sure that I am leveraging with my team everything I can with this book, because the message as it stands on its own is powerful. Yes, I could add 5 more stories since I wrote the book. That would be great, but it's not telling a new story. It's telling a different story. So that's what I've learned. I've learned that it's, sometimes even if you're prolific, you got to say, okay, stop. And now let's utilize what you have in front of you.
You are obviously a very creative person. You were busy writing songs early in your career, then you moved to writing books. You like creating. So I could see the allure of wanting to continue to do that. But most authors who I feel like you have a lesson there that I think others need to hear, which is don't just keep putting stuff out if you're not leveraging what you've already created. And you are trying to be, I guess I would say, disciplined in your approach to make sure that you really focus in on this book, the Power of Differentiation, this message, get it out to your ideal people, right? But also letting it be known on these podcasts like ours, who else might benefit from this book. When what year and month, like when did the book come out? How recently is this?
The book came out in 2024.
Okay, so you were writing it during the pandemic.
Yes.
Which is the influence piece.
Right.
What was some of those early signs that made you think, okay, yeah, this book is landing the way I was hoping it would happen, and it's starting to create some new opportunities? Like, what were those early signs that told you that all that work that you put in over multiple years was absolutely worth it?
I saw that there was interest from people outside of our organization, could be podcasters, et cetera, that said, yeah, I want you on. I want you talking about this. This sounds interesting. And I thought, that's kind of good. Another thing that's come up is keynote speeches. So I've been reached out without reaching out to anybody. And I've now done 5 keynote speeches that have gone over great just in the last month. This just happened. It's all of a sudden, will you? And I'm going, well, okay. I think the message resonates so strongly with organizations that are needing to hold on to their people and are needing to avoid the whole commodity pressure, that, if anything, I think the message resonates more now a year later than it did then. So I've seen a steady influx of interest. I haven't had anybody call and say, hey, I read your book. I want to hire you. Here's a check. But what I have received is many, many inquiries. And in many, many cases, it's resulted in business as we've talked about what's going on, as we've shared stories, and as I've been able to help those individual companies that reached out.
So it sounds, Barry, like doing keynotes wasn't actually one of the things you were hoping for from the book. It was an unexpected next step. Is that right?
That's right. In fact, if anything, early on, I was asked, hey, do you want to do a lot of speaking? And I went, no, I don't want to go travel and do speaking. But, and this relates to what I talked about earlier, Robbie, in my old rock and roll days, my band and I would create these songs, we'd practice, and we'd go out to the clubs, to the arenas, the small little arenas, and we would go play. And that's exactly what a keynote speech is. I put together the material, I rehearse this thing, and I go out and perform. And I actually found that it was really enjoyable for me. So it's something I did not anticipate, but it's a pleasant surprise.
And who are the kinds of entities that are inviting you to come? Or is this like individual companies, associations? Like, how is it tied back to the ideal reader or
It's
the ideal
tied back.
client?
Yes, it is. So whether it's the Equitable Insurance Company, whether it is the Indiana Manufacturers Association, whether it is the Better Business Bureau, and
Mhm.
whether it is a university that says, will you please do this for our students? It's all of those types of organizations. They're
Mhm.
looking for some level of input in this area. And it's unique. It's a unique thing that I think is very timely when you look at, I look at what's going on out there in business. I'm sure your audience hears this, but I hear, people don't care about where they work. People don't want to do a good job. People, blah, blah, all this kind of stuff. And I'm going, okay, but if they knew what they were doing had some value to it, and if their leadership showed them that they valued them for that, would this improve? And I think it's obvious. Yeah, sure, it would improve. And oh, by the way, would your customers see that or feel that in their interactions with your people? And you go, well, yeah. And would your people probably do a little bit better as far as quality control? Well, yeah. So to me, it sounds great.
Yeah.
And it's the cheapest thing in the world you can do, because you're not spending millions on advertising to strangers out there as
Mhm.
your only way to increase business.
Man, I'm so aligned with you on this message. This is great. One of the things I focus a lot on as a launch strategist is the reviews. And a lot of authors, even really successful authors, don't have a plan in their, the moment between publishing and then going and doing PR and marketing. They don't really have a moment to do that launch process thoughtfully. I did notice that you had 60 global ratings,
Mhm.
and that's the 1 through 5 stars, and 59 of those 60 people wrote a review. So first of
Right.
all, kudos to
Right.
get almost all the people writing reviews. That means you showed an effort to get those written reviews. And also to
Mhm.
get over 50 requires a real process. Like, it's not happenstance. How did collecting reviews early on fit in with the overall strategy? Are those reviews from your likely prospects, referral partners that you were trying to kind of like get the flywheel moving? Yeah, what was your thought process and approach?
We looked at it as a campaign where we were letting people know, and this could be via social media, that we have the book coming out, that we would love you to purchase the book and leave an honest review. You never ask for a great review, positive review, because it's unethical. So you just say, hey, give me a review. And if it's a 3 out of 5, hey, you got a review. It's better than nothing. So we did that. Another thing we did is the hundreds of people who reached out to me via podcast. We reached out to them and said, will you please purchase the book? And if possible, leave a review. Again, an honest review, but we would appreciate that. So we did that as well. And we did reach out to a group of maybe 3,000 people out there who will read our biweekly newsletter. And we said, hey, we have this book out there. Please review if you can. And so worldwide, we have had, I know we have 60, I think we have 37 in Europe, and we have 60 here. And it's been great. And they're actually really good reviews. I think we have an average of 4.9 or 5 out of 5, which is great. So we did that. And I looked at, and Robbie, your question's great, because I looked at some books out there that I thought were pretty popular, and they had like 11 reviews. And I thought, we've got to do better than that. So that was one of our goals. Our goal was let's hit 50 plus, and let's see what we can do.
One of the things that spurred me to finally focus my business on book launch strategy was I had a podcast under a different name. It was about leadership and networking, and people would get pitched to me by podcast placement companies, which is how I met you, actually. And if they wrote a book on networking, I was particularly keen to check them out. And
Right.
one guy, he had 7 ratings and 4 reviews, and 2 of the reviews shared the same last name as him. So I was like, but okay, maybe that's less credible than I thought, and actually didn't book him, right? Like reviews are social proof on your book sales page, and more than 90% of us check reviews before making a purchase. So I love that you had that as part of this sequence, and that you reached out to people who were engaging with you. You reached out to people who were part of your newsletter list, right? These are people who are interested in your topic. I'm actually curious about any surprising ways that your book helps you build relationships with either, current or past clients, referral partners, collaborators, any unexpected wins in the relationship building arena.
Yes. And it's because we created what we call a machine. Okay. So we're promoting this book a year and a half later on a daily basis. Okay. In addition, that machine involves that bi-weekly newsletter, and we take stories, we take content from the book, and we repurpose it for those newsletters. So that goes out. In addition to that, I'm a podcast guest, as I've mentioned to you, over 100 podcasts, but we have our own podcast. So you're asking all these things so that we created this machine. On our podcast, we've been able to reach out to some very, very famous authors, wonderful people that we have never had an in-depth relationship with. And we've invited them to tell their story on our podcast. And in many cases, in fact, no case was it a bad thing, but in many cases, we developed very, very good friendships, including them recommending other people for us to talk to and to meet. So that's where it has really helped. But it never would have helped on its own. You put a book out there, Robbie, and that's it. It's not going to go promote itself. So we literally have this thing we call a machine, and it's moving and cranking through, and the gears are turning every single day. But we've made friends. We've made great connections with people, and I have already, I guess you could say indirectly, there's been business, but I have no doubt that there will be dramatic business as we go down the road. The other thing I'll share with the folks out there, depending on what business you're in my business, in the marketing, training, and consulting business, very few of my competitors have written a book, let alone a dozen, but very few have written a book. So we walk in when we're talking to a new client or an existing client, and we go, hey, have you gotten our book? Hey, here, I'll sign it for you, ... Okay, we're already standing out. We're already somebody that's doing something that the other people are not doing. And I think that's critical. Writing a book, you live this every day, but writing a book is not something you do on a whim. I mean, it is a discipline. And I'll share with you, you didn't ask me this, but the most frustrating, difficult part of the book for me was after I wrote it, was the next year and a half of going through and editing or waiting for edits and then editing again and going through and going through. It made it better. But I had the book written a year and a half prior. So it's not easy to go do it. So when you walk in with a book, you're standing out amongst a lot of other people out there.
Yeah, one of the things that happens, I'm a professional speaker, I'm part of the National Speakers Association, is at some point in that life, you are now competing for the spot on stage with other speakers who also have a book. So that becomes the default, not a differentiator. So then how do you stand out? Is it you just keep writing books, but also the reviews that you've already, right? Like if they have no reviews and you have glowing ones, like that could make a difference too. But you also mentioned just now repurposing your content from the book and sharing that out in your newsletter. Tell us more about how you're mining your book for that. Are you using AI? Do you have someone assisting you? Like, how do you know what little nuggets to grab from the book and to keep that fresh? So, because clearly this material is no longer fresh for you. You wrote it, you edited it back and forth for a year and a half, and now you've been talking about it for a year and a half. How are you maintaining some enthusiasm and finding those great nuggets to share?
Great question. Some of what has inspired me are the day-to-day situations that I'm in with business. And I go, well, you know what? That'd be a great one to share in our newsletter. Hey, you know what? I cover that in the book on this one topic. We ought to put it in there. So I have some of that I also have been able to go through the book itself and say, okay, here's some things I think are good. I have asked AI, go through my book, tell me, 15 topics that you think are, most intriguing. And so I'll get some of those too. Then what I do, Robbie, is, and this may sound a little strange, but I don't then turn to the book and literally lift passages out of the book. I force myself to sit down and write, it could be 800 words. It's not going to be 10,000 words. It'll be 800 words or so about this particular topic and what value I think it has for the audience. We always have 2 or 3 what we call difference makers. So we'll share a story. We'll share what we think is important. We'll go, here are 2 difference makers you can adopt in your life, in your business. And we share those things. Another thing I do in that newsletter is I promote the podcasts that have invited me. So for instance, your podcast, I would say, you've got to look at Robbie's podcast. It's great, ... And I promote other people in the podcast because why not, right? Let's help other people as well. So I turn to the content I have. I have a great team at my office because I run a marketing company. So I have a group of really great people on it. This group, each of them, it's a team of 5 people, and they love it. They jump in and they do various things from setting up podcasts for me to co-writing content to laying out a newsletter. They do this stuff because to me, that's exciting and fun. And then I give them a chance to share all of that with other people. Another thing we do is we have a company of 20, 30 people, and we keep track of how many books they send out. So they share my book with customers. So over a period of a year, there'll be a few hundred of those books sent out to people. So we're trying to raise awareness, and we look at the book as an opportunity to share what we believe. If it turns into business, great. But if not, it's a positive.
Well, I imagine that the business that you would be hired for is a, multi-figure contract, not a walk-in, here's your $99 kind of thing.
Right.
So it requires a longer process to nurture people through
Yes.
a pipeline. And all these little tidbits you're giving them, whether it's the stories from the stage or the stories from the newsletter, or the social media, whatever it might be, is a taste of who you are, what you care about, how you think about this, so that they can identify and resonate with it. This idea of rewriting the content. So you've already done the hard work of creating the book, but then taking something from the book and trying to apply it to a current day moment, I think is part of keeping it fresh and keeping the book alive. But also this commitment, this machine. I mean, so many authors have maybe a process for the first 3 months. Some have a little bit of a marketing plan for the first year. I know one person who had a plan for 1,000 days, but he's an exceptional human being. And he really is the outlier in all of this. Most people just don't realize you really have to have something in place. It will not just magically happen on its own. And that the work of writing the book having been done, you now can find ways to like repurpose it, revisit it, weave it into new content. And even those new stories that you were like, ooh, I really chomping at the bit to like put them in another edition or write another book, that even could be part of this content you're putting out. Maybe one day it's part of a book, maybe it's not. But if the floodgates open in your mind, let's share that. The pipeline from the book to the business is the next piece I wanted to ask about, because this is another area I feel like a lot of authors miss an opportunity. They write a great book, but they don't include any way to contact the author. And I mean like anything.
Right.
And some are like, well, I put my LinkedIn in the about the author page. I'm like, okay, sure. How did you think about taking the reader on a journey so that they're inspired, and like, what are the next things they can do with you? How do they find you? How do they kind of get into that newsletter or book a call with you? Like how much of that was developed before the book came out, or did some of that get developed after the fact and it's more on your website? Like, how do you think about that?
Well, we developed it prior to the book, but we then refined it after the book. So we have my website. For me personally, we have my company's website. So both of those, you have access to the book. We have an ongoing LinkedIn and social media campaign. We have the podcasts where we share how you can get a hold of us. Every podcast I'm on, I'm asked that question as well when I'm a guest. So we have this, again, like I called it a machine, but we have this pipeline focus. And every time we reach out, we may have a few thousand email reach outs during a year, a few thousand. And they're all personalized. They're not generic things. So we have a focus on it. I think one thing I'd share with the audience, because I've seen this in other areas of creativity, and that is you don't know where or when your message is going to resonate. And so the more opportunities you get it in front of people, the better. In the creative world, there have been many, many research projects on creativity. And the one that shocked me early on was the best way to come up with something creative. Best way to come up with one great idea is to come up with 100. If you come up with 5, you're less likely. If you come up with 1, the first one that comes to your head, well, maybe not. If you come up with 100, you're going to have a bunch of ideas. And the thing that's interesting is you don't know which one it will be. It could be your 37th idea is the one you go, you know what? I love it. Same thing with promoting the book and your message. You don't know which one will resonate. So if you do only 5 activities, good luck. If you do 1,000, like you said, your friend who's doing 1,000 days, all right, he or she's probably going to get some success.
Yeah, just by virtue of being out there and trying lots of things. You mentioned doing several thousand personalized email outreaches in a year. Who are you messaging to, and what's the message about?
We are messaging to the following. So we're looking at specific industries and their associations, because we believe this would be great for a manufacturing association, things like that. So we're reaching out to the leaders of those associations. We're reaching out to the leaders of major corporations throughout the United States regarding the messaging of the book and offering up a free book. We're also reaching out to educational institutions to help them. So for instance, Cambridge.
Sorry, just to interrupt. On the granular level here, it sounds like you have like a 1-2 process. So someone on your team is helping you find the names and contact info, right? So that's a big hurdle, but there are lists out there, so don't let that stop anyone. So you figure out who your audience is, you find the right kind of contact list, you do the searches online for them, and even AI can help in some respect. And then you reach out and you tell them about the message of your book, and you offer them a free copy, and then they reply. Do they fill out a form? Do they just reply via email? Like, how do they tell you?
They reply to the email, just real basic. Yes,
your address.
Send this to me.
Yeah, here's where to ship it to, and then you personalize a book and ship it. Is there a follow-up message like sometime later?
Yeah, there's a follow-up to, did you enjoy it, et cetera, et cetera. We have done that. The other things that we've done, originally, we experimented with this. We sent out copies of the book, the hardcover copies. So we did maybe 200 mailings to see, will we get a response? And we found out we really didn't get a response. Somebody just received the book and they went, okay, I don't care. So then we altered it and said, we will send this to you, or we offered up a PDF version of the book as well, if they wanted that as well. But normally they're going to respond back and say, send me the hardcover. We send the hardcover along with a personalized message. So the person gets that message, and it's so right now, as an example, I was starting to mention that Cambridge University in England reached out and said, hey, will you send me your book? Sure. Then they said, will you be on our podcast? So we're on Cambridge's podcast. We're in Yale and Harvard's university, Stanford's university's libraries. So we're in different spots, and we've had a few universities say, will you speak to our students? So all those things have happened.
I love this. I have this analogy that I didn't include in my latest book. My latest book is Launch Your Book, An Entrepreneur's Guide to Reviews that Drive Revenue. And this is something I thought of after the fact. most people are talking about their book as a business card, and I'm kind of tired of this because business cards get thrown away. They're not as meaningful. So I wanted us to picture our book being a brick because we put so much effort into it. It's just like a really good physical thing. But when we have this brick, we put it, well, first we hold it up to the camera to take a picture with a selfie. And then we're like, oh, our arms are really tight. So we put it down and we stand on it, and it makes us feel tall. And we start waving people over and they admire us. And we're like, oh yeah, look at this thing I did. But life moves on, and we need to step off the brick and continue with whatever else was on our life. The brick is just sitting there. But if the brick was propping open the door between the author and their likely prospect, or the author and their referral partner, and throughout the sequence of events during the launch or in the marketing after the launch, the door got propped open wider. Now the book is a business asset, and it's leading to these future collaborations. Like, you're just describing, hey, here's the message of my book. Would you like me to send you a copy? Yes, please do. Hey, do you want to be on our podcast? You get on the podcast. They like your message. Hey, we have a panel coming up for a conference. You want to be part of the oh, hey, we have a keynote spot, right? Like, like, you don't just go for the, hey, hire me to be a keynote. Buy 50,000 copies of my book. Spend 50 grand on a consulting. Like, I think too many people realize they know what they want it to be, but they don't realize all these steps and the machine behind it.
Well, if you look at if you look at the successful, again, I'll go back to my rock and roll days, the successful bands, they played out in front of audiences hundreds, if not thousands of times. And they practiced and practiced and practiced. And they sent out the tapes of their music hundreds and hundreds of times to have that one brick keep that door open with one company that gave them a contract. And that's what you're saying. And that's what we have to do. And there are most of us out there that go, I don't want to go through that. Well, then don't, because that makes my job easier. I'm going to stand out. One thing, and Robbie, you're a phenomenal success on this as well. You've had this podcast. Most podcasters give up after their 7th or 8th podcast. They just quit. And, that's terrible. 98% of them quit by the time they do their 7th, 8th, whatever it was, podcast. Well, if you keep just in the podcast world, keep going, you're in the top 2% because everybody else is quitting. Same thing with what you described with the brick. If you're not using that book as a brick, and you're not keeping that door open, and you're not trying to prop yourself up and get in front of a lot of people, you've wasted a lot of time. And I'll say this too, I think you'll agree with me. If your current book isn't really doing what you want, and you think the answer is, let's write a new book, I want you to step back and say, oh, wait a minute, what's going to make anything different? You've got to make this book the best it can be. You got to promote it as far as you can promote it until you just are exhausted. And then maybe you need a new book.
Yeah. I mean, I think that I 100% agree with you. I think people underestimate how hard it is to get their book out into the world beyond the publication day, because it is so hard to get it to publication day. Like, I don't want to undersell that. Like, it is tremendous amount of effort to get it, particularly a good quality, well-produced book, to the published line. But the published date is the last date to initiate a marketing plan. You could do it earlier, but it's not the last day of the book. It's the last day to initiate a marketing plan. And I think the launch piece, which you did really well, which is why I wanted to have you on, because honestly, if you had done all the things that you talked about, but you hadn't done the 50+ reviews, I think it all would be harder, because you go and reach out to Cambridge and you tell them about your message. Well, you know what they're going to do? They're going to look you up, and you know where they're going to check out your book? On Amazon. You're giving them a free book. Well, they're going to see right away it's well rated. I see a bunch of reviews. I'm scrolling through them. People seem to, the message is really valuable. Yeah. All right, Barry, send me the book. If you had no reviews, a handful of reviews, maybe that wouldn't happen. If the book was really poorly done and you had low ratings, then your marketing would definitely not work. So I just think people have to have a good book with a clear audience that you've figured out, and then all this other work to get your message out there. And I love the fact that you're not just focusing on selling the book, and that you knew from the beginning it wasn't about book sales, but getting the book to the right audience can lead people through a process that may eventually lead to business. And the payoff for that one person saying yes is enough to warrant all this effort. But
Right.
you're planting seeds like all over the place, and now you're just hoping for good weather.
No, you're right. And if you don't plant the seeds, it doesn't matter how good the weather is.
Yeah. I appreciate it also that you shared a marketing strategy that didn't work.
Yeah.
You said you mailed out 200 books
Right.
without any,
Nothing.
invitation from them to receive the book, and you got no responses. I think that's helpful to hear as well, because there's a way in which you're like, oh, that just seems simpler. But no, it's
Right.
not effective. And you need a little bit of buy-in, because if that one person becomes a champion for you within a company, then they'll help you find your way to the other opportunities in that company. Maybe an ERG, maybe a podcast, maybe it's a keynote. Some paid, some not. I mean, a book like yours, does it have a companion guide? I'm curious, like, how would a manager or a leader use the book? Is it clear to that individual person who gets a copy of the book how to then take it to more people in the company?
Yeah, it is. It's very clear because we have a 5-step process that's right in the middle of the book that says, okay, here's how we do it. And if you want to do it on your own, go do it. And
That's brilliant.
it's great with me. Yeah, there's a process. It's not a book where it's a bunch of stories about the author and how great the author is. It's not that book. I'm mentioned very seldom in there. It's mostly focusing on really positive situations and people. And this one thing I'll share with the audience too, and that is I reached out to many of people I knew. Some were clients, some were not clients. And I said, I'd love to tell your story. And I'd say out of 35 people, because I'll give you the exact number, 35 people I reached out to, 32 said yes. I'd love it, including some that were parts of very, very large multinational companies. And then there were 3 that said no. One was a small firm that says, no, we don't want to be associated with anything, in the public's eye. We keep our heads down. I go, okay. And then surprisingly, there was one company I had no relationship with business-wise, but I knew of them. And they go, what do you want for this? What are you trying to do to us? Why are you doing this? And I said, I'm trying to help you guys. I'm trying to shine a light on what you've done. And the person, I had a friend who was a leader there. I said, I don't like the attitude of this person. I said, so I'm not going to include you guys in it. And he went, well, okay. And then the last one that said no, so I'm experimenting with those folks, was a private equity firm. And they had a number of companies I was going to share great positive stories on. And they said, look, we love the stories, but we're afraid that it implies that you're saying that every time we do this, we're always going to do a great job. And we're afraid. So I said, if you're afraid that positive press like this is going to hurt you, then let's not put it in. But I'm sharing with you there, I reached out, and what I thought was really good, and I still stick to this because it has been, is the book's not about how great I am, because that's not the case. Mm-hmm. It is about, and many of my newsletters that go out share the story about so-and-so from this company. Of course, they approve it in advance, but it's a great way to shine a positive light on somebody and their organization.
Also, what a great newsletter to receive in an inbox that's filled with probably not wonderful news all the time. It sounds very uplifting. And I also, a lot of people miss the fact that the effort to get those 30 plus interviews on the record is also part of how you're building your pipeline and expanding your reach and deepening relationships before the book has been written. I mean, all of that upfront work to shine the light. You remind me a little bit of Dory Clark. Dory Clark's been a longtime friend of mine, sometimes coach and mentor, but she interviews like 50 people for a book and then writes on a topic that she was curious about. She's done this over and over and over again. But that's a lot. That's how she's built a network. All these people now know who she is because she's shining lighting on them. And this idea that some people would be scared to be included, I mean, that's on them. I love that you are sharing that, like, don't take that as a rejection of you.
Right. Well, I mean, I'll be honest with you. It really irritated me with one of the people because I'm thinking, what do you mean? Because she thought I was trying to build off their success. And I said, okay, you're a really good company. But in the same chapter, Macallan Scotch and Audi of America and Harley-Davidson are in here, and they're proud to be affiliated with it. And you have a far smaller company, let's say, and you think somebody's trying to take advantage of you. And I said, that's just not how I want to do this.
Yeah, it's such a scarcity-minded approach when you're
Right.
being so abundant. So as we wrap up here, any advice you would have given yourself, that you've learned, like, talking to a newer author about a lesson learned in approaching this book and the planning you've put into place? It sounds like you've just really been very thoughtful. But is there anything that you would have gone back in time and told yourself to do a little differently?
Well, what I would say is this, is that write it. Don't think about it. Don't worry about it being perfect. Force yourself to go through whatever topics you think you should include. Write it. Write the beginning of that chapter to the end. Don't write the first sentence. Don't wait on, doing the perfect first paragraph, and get it out of your system, and then give it a month, and then go look at it again and continue that process. So I think avoid perfection. So one thing we did, we had the book out there, and I had my people look for typos or whatever. And after we sent it out the first time, we found 3 or 4 little typo things, nothing horrible. And we fixed it. And my point is, that's the good news today. So much is digital, so that the next time the book's printed out there, those are all fixed. So don't worry about perfection is my biggest lesson.
I love this. Hey, Barry, how can people find you and follow your work?
Find me on LinkedIn under Barry LaBov. I will respond. Find me on LaBov.com as well as BarryLaBov.com. And please go to Amazon and buy the book. Give an honest review. I would really appreciate it.
There you go. Again, always asking for the review. Well done, Barry. Hey, we're going to put all those links, including a link to your book, your podcast, your websites, LinkedIn. We'll put all those links in the show notes at bizbookpubhub.com. You'll also find a curated directory of experts who support entrepreneurs through the writing, editing, publishing, launching, and marketing phases of their author journey. All the show notes for other episodes, a free virtual networking event that we host all the time for authors and speakers, so much more. A lot of information there. Check it out at bizbookpubhub.com. Barry, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Robbie. It is an honor.